Horrifying shark attacks that will leave you speechless. In a series of terrifying shark attacks, victims faced life-threatening encounters in what should have been peaceful waters. From a surfer's back being skinned alive to a tourist dragged underwater by a massive predator. These stories are as brutal as they are shocking. These sharks struck without warning, proving no one is safe when the ocean's deadliest hunters are nearby. The brutality of these attacks will leave you questioning the safety of even the most peaceful shorelines. January 12, 2025, was a bright and clear morning along the coast of San Diego, California. The waves were rolling in perfectly, making it an ideal day for surfing. Among the surfers enjoying the ocean that day was 27-year-old Daniel Watts, a passionate surfer who had spent most of his life riding waves. He had grown up in California and had been drawn to the ocean since childhood. Over the years, he had become skilled in the sport, often traveling to different beaches in search of the best waves. San Diego was one of his favorite spots. He had spent countless hours in these waters. Daniel was known for his adventurous nature and love for the sea. He had been surfing for more than a decade and had a deep understanding of the ocean. He respected its power and was always cautious while in the water. That morning he arrived at the beach feeling excited. He had checked the weather and wave conditions, ensuring it was a good day to surf. He put on his wetsuit, grabbed his board, and headed into the water. The waves were perfect, and he felt the familiar rush of excitement as he paddled out. Daniel caught wave after wave for over an hour, feeling completely at ease in the water. The sun reflected off the ocean's surface, and everything seemed peaceful. He had no idea that danger was lurking beneath him. As he paddled back out after a strong ride, something massive moved silently below him. A 16-foot great white shark had been lurking in the deeper waters, unnoticed by the surfers nearby. The movement of the surfers above had caught its attention, and it began to close in. Without warning, the shark attacked. It launched itself upward with incredible force, striking Daniel from below. The impact was immediate and brutal. The shark latched onto Daniel's torso, its teeth slicing through his wetsuit and into his flesh. The predator's grip was cruel as it shook its head violently, attempting to tear him apart. The pain was overwhelming, but Daniel's survival instincts kicked in. He struggled against the shark's hold, fighting with all his strength. Water splashed wildly around him as he thrashed, desperate to break free. Daniel was dragged under but miraculously fought free despite being severely injured. His entire back was stripped of skin, leaving deep lacerations. Blood filled the water around him, attracting even more danger. The powerful predator circled for another attack, but other surfers nearby had already started shouting and paddling toward him. The noise and sudden movement distracted the shark for a brief moment, giving Daniel just enough time to stay afloat. A group of surfers rushed to his aid, pulling him onto a board as quickly as possible. They could see the severity of his injuries, but they focused on getting him to shore. The beach was still some distance away, and every second mattered. Despite the unbearable pain, Daniel clung to consciousness as his rescuers paddled furiously, knowing that reaching land was his only chance for survival. The fight for his life was far from over. The surfers paddled with strength, trying to get Daniel to shore as quickly as possible. The water around them was still stained red, a chilling reminder of the attack. Every second felt longer than the last as they struggled against the waves. Daniel's body was weak and his breathing was shallow. He was losing a lot of blood and his injuries were severe. His rescuers knew they had to move fast before it was too late. As they reached the shore, a group of beachgoers rushed to help. Someone had already called emergency services, and sirens could be heard in the distance. Lifeguards arrived first, bringing medical supplies and working quickly to stop the bleeding. Daniel's entire back had been stripped of skin, leaving deep wounds that were difficult to treat on the spot. The lifeguards did their best to keep him stable, applying pressure to slow the blood loss. They asked him to stay awake, but his body was weak. Minutes later, paramedics arrived and carefully placed him on a stretcher. They knew his condition was critical and transported him to the nearest hospital without delay. Inside the ambulance, his pulse was checked repeatedly. The ride felt long, and there was no certainty about whether he would survive. His body had suffered immense trauma, and the amount of blood he had lost was dangerous. Doctors were prepared to begin emergency treatment as soon as he arrived. At the hospital, a team of specialists worked quickly. His wounds needed immediate attention, and surgeons operated for hours to try to repair the damage. The deep cuts and torn flesh made the procedure difficult. The medical team fought to control the bleeding, prevent infection, and stabilize him. His body had been through a lot, and his condition remained uncertain. News of the attack spread quickly. Surfers who had been in the water that day shared their terrifying experience. Locals were shocked, as shark attacks in the area were rare. Beach officials immediately closed the seas to ensure no one else was at risk. Warnings were issued advising people to stay away until further notice. The incident raised concerns about increased shark activity along the coast. Daniel's family and friends waited anxiously for updates. The hospital remained silent about his chances of survival, as the extent of his injuries made it impossible to predict what would happen. Experts analyzed the attack to understand why the shark had targeted him. Some believed the predator had mistaken him for prey, while others thought the presence of surfers had disturbed its hunting patterns. Days passed and Daniel remained in critical condition. Doctors monitored him closely, watching for signs of improvement. The attack had left him permanently scarred, both physically and emotionally. His future as a surfer was uncertain, but what mattered most was whether he would survive. The ocean, once his greatest passion, had turned into a place of danger. His fight was not over. Only time would tell if he would recover. On April 25, 2022, the sun rose over the calm waters of Sarasota, Florida. The sky was clear, and the sea reflected shades of blue and gold. Rachel Harmon, a 30-year-old paddleboarding enthusiast, had always loved the ocean. She had spent her childhood near the coast, fascinated by the waves and the life beneath them. She had moved to Florida a few years earlier, drawn by its warm climate and beautiful beaches. The ocean felt like home to her, and she spent most mornings on the water, enjoying the peace it brought. Rachel was an experienced paddleboarder. She had practiced the sport for years and knew how to handle herself on the waves. She was excited to be out on the water with her friends that morning. They had all gathered at the shoreline early, carrying their boards and chatting about the perfect conditions. The waves were small, and the air was still. It was the kind of morning that made paddleboarding feel effortless. As Rachel paddled further out, she enjoyed the stillness around her. The only sounds were the gentle splash of her paddle and the occasional call of seabirds overhead. She loved these quiet moments when the world felt far away. She felt free, moving smoothly over the surface, her board gliding through the water. Her friends were not far behind, enjoying their time on the waves. Everything felt perfect. Rachel and her friends did not know that something was moving below them. A 15-foot tiger shark lurked in the deep, its large body barely visible in the clear water. It had been swimming in the area, searching for food, and Rachel's presence had caught its attention. The movement of her board and the soft splashes of her paddle were enough to draw the predator closer. The shark circled, watching, waiting. Then, in an instant, it struck. Without warning, the shark surged upward. Its powerful jaws latched onto the underside of Rachel's paddleboard, knocking her off balance. She barely had time to react before she was thrown into the water. The impact shocked her, but she felt something strong grab her leg before she could swim back to her board. The shark's teeth sank deep into her flesh, pulling her downward with incredible force. Rachel thrashed, struggling to free herself, but the grip was too strong. Her friends turned toward the sound of splashing and saw Rachel disappear beneath the waves. Panic spread through the group. They shouted her name, paddling frantically toward the spot where she had been. For a brief moment, Rachel resurfaced, gasping for air. But the shark was relentless. It thrashed violently, dragging her under again. The water churned as the struggle continued. Her friends could only watch in horror, unable to reach her in time. As the ocean settled, Rachel was gone. The only sign of the attack was the rippling water and the drifting paddleboard. Her friends called for help, but deep down they feared the worst. Rachel's friends continued to search the water, their hearts pounding as they scanned the surface. The waves had settled, but there was no sign of Rachel. The ocean that had felt so peaceful moments before now seemed vast and terrifying. One of her friends paddled toward her drifting board, hoping she would appear, but the silence around them was heavy. The minutes felt endless as they waited, calling her name and hoping she would emerge. The emergency services were contacted, and a search operation began. Lifeguards arrived first, quickly scanning the area. Boats moved through the water, their engines breaking the silence. Helicopters flew overhead, searching for any sign of movement below. Every second that passed made it clear how serious the situation was. The ocean was unpredictable, and the power of the predator was undeniable. As the search continued, rescuers spotted something in the distance. Floating debris from Rachel's paddleboard was recovered, and soon after they found more evidence of the attack. Her body was later found severely disfigured. It was a heartbreaking discovery that confirmed what her friends had feared, and the calm morning had turned into a nightmare. News of the attack spread quickly. Sarasota, known for its beautiful beaches and popular paddleboarding spots, was shaken. Locals and tourists alike felt the impact of what had happened. Shark attacks in the area were rare, making this event even more shocking. Authorities immediately warned people to stay out of the water while experts studied the situation. Signs were placed along the shoreline, and officials monitored the coast for more sightings. Marine biologists explained that sharks do not usually target humans, but sudden movements in the water can trigger an instinctive response. The splashes made by Rachel's fall and struggle may have caused the shark to react aggressively. Experts reminded people to stay aware of their surroundings while in the ocean, even in familiar waters. Rachel's family and friends were devastated. They spoke about her love for the sea and her joy in being on the water. She had always been careful and aware, but nature is unpredictable. Her loss was deeply felt, not only by those who knew her, but also by the entire community. A memorial was held on the beach where people gathered to remember her. Flowers were placed in the water, drifting with the tide as a tribute to her life. The attack raised safety concerns, leading to discussions on how to prevent similar incidents. Researchers studied shark behavior in the area, and local authorities considered new safety measures. Some suggested limiting water activities during certain hours, while others recommended increased monitoring. The ocean remained the same, its waves rolling onto the shore as always. But for those who knew Rachel, it would never feel the same again. The beauty of the water now reminded them of the power that lay beneath. The memory of that morning would stay with them forever. On June 7, 2024, the warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico shimmered under the bright afternoon sun. A group of tourists had gathered for a scenic boat ride, eager to experience the beauty of the open sea. Among them was 29-year-old Anna Williams, a travel enthusiast from Texas who had always loved the ocean. She had spent years exploring different coastal destinations, capturing every special moment with her camera. This trip was another adventure for her, and she was excited to take in the breathtaking views of the vast blue waters. The boat moved smoothly across the waves, offering the group a peaceful escape from the city's noise. The air smelled of salt, and the sound of seagulls filled the sky. Everyone on board enjoyed the ride, some taking photos while others simply relaxed, feeling the cool breeze against their faces. The Gulf of Mexico was known for its rich marine life, and spotting dolphins or sea turtles was a common delight for visitors. However, beneath the surface, dangers also lurked. Anna, eager to get the perfect picture of the endless horizon, stepped closer to the edge of the boat. She carefully adjusted her camera, leaning slightly over the railing to capture the sun's reflection on the water. The waves rolled gently, creating a rhythmic motion that made the moment calm and peaceful. But without warning, the tranquility was shattered. From the ocean's depths, an enormous great white shark, measuring an estimated 18 feet long, surged upward with astonishing speed. In seconds, the predator reached the surface and struck with incredible force. The shark latched onto Anna's arm, its powerful jaws closing around her as she screamed in horror. The sudden attack sent a wave of panic through the group, freezing everyone in place. Anna's scream echoed across the water as she struggled against the beast's grip. The boat rocked slightly as others rushed to help, but the shark's strength was overwhelming. The captain, realizing the urgency, steered the boat closer in an attempt to intervene. The once calm ocean had turned into a scene of chaos, with splashes and frantic movements disturbing the surface. As the group watched in terror, the shark dragged Anna off the boat and into the water. The force of the pull was too strong and she disappeared beneath the surface. The captain quickly called for emergency assistance, hoping help would arrive on time. The passengers looked on helplessly, their hearts pounding as they searched the water for any sign of her. The ocean remained still for an eternity, except for the gentle ripples caused by the boat's movement. Everyone's fear was evident as they struggled to process what had happened. The silence was haunting, broken only by the sound of the waves. The realization set in. Anna was gone. The once joyful trip had turned into a nightmare, and no one knew what would happen next. The boat floated silently as the passengers stood frozen, staring at the empty water. The blue surface stretched endlessly, hiding the terrifying scene that had just unfolded. The group remained motionless, unable to believe what had happened. The realization that Anna was no longer there filled the air with a heavy sense of shock. Some passengers scanned the waves, hoping for movement, but the ocean gave no answers. Still gripping the wheel tightly, the captain tried to steady his voice as he called for assistance. The radio crackled as he sent an urgent distress signal, reporting the attack and requesting immediate help. The group of tourists huddled together, their faces pale with fear. Some gripped the railing, their hands shaking as they searched the endless blue for any sign of Anna. But the water remained still as if nothing had happened. The minutes passed slowly, each one dragging on longer than the last. The passengers whispered to one another, their voices filled with disbelief. No one had expected danger on what was supposed to be a peaceful trip. The shock of seeing the attack had left them feeling helpless. The bright afternoon sun continued to shine, casting a cruel contrast to the horror they had just witnessed. A few passengers pointed to the distance as the boat drifted, hoping Anna would resurface. But deep down they knew the truth. The shark had struck with such force that there was little chance of survival. Anna's body was never recovered, lost beneath the vast waters of the Gulf. The realization hit the group hard. Some broke down, unable to hold back their emotions. The exciting trip had begun with excitement and turned into an unthinkable tragedy. When emergency responders arrived, they quickly assessed the situation. Other boats had also been alerted, and they searched the nearby waters, hoping to find any trace of Anna. The area was scanned thoroughly, but the ocean had already hidden all evidence of the attack. With no sign of her, the search teams could do little but inform authorities of the incident. Warnings were issued to other boats, and the Coast Guard monitored the waters closely. The news of the attack spread quickly. Reports detailed the terrifying moment when Anna was pulled into the sea. People in the local community were shocked, as shark attacks were rare in this region. The event left many questioning the risks of open water activities. Scientists reminded the public that sharks do not intentionally hunt humans, but the incident left many uneasy. Back on shore, the passengers struggled to process what had happened. The tragedy had left a lasting impact on everyone who had been on that boat. Some vowed never to return to the ocean, while others found it difficult to forget the sight of the attack. The once peaceful waters now carried the memory of what had occurred, a reminder of how quickly nature could turn from calm to deadly. On May 13, 2024, the sun rose over the calm waters of Cape Cod, Massachusetts. The waves stretched far into the distance as boats searched for the day's catch. Among them was Jack Martin, a 52-year-old fisherman who had spent decades working on the ocean. Fishing had been his passion since childhood, and he had made a name for himself in the small coastal town. He set out before sunrise every morning, ready to take on the sea. His boat, a sturdy vessel built for deep-sea fishing, had carried him through many seasons of hard work. Jack and his crew were miles from shore that morning, casting their lines into the deep blue water. The ocean was peaceful, and the salty breeze carried the familiar sounds of seagulls overhead. The men talked quietly, waiting for the fish to bite. Jack stood near the boat's edge, adjusting his gear as he prepared for the next catch. He had done this countless times, but the sea was always unpredictable. As the hours passed, the water remained still, and the fish were not biting. Jack's crew watched, scanning the waves for any movement. Suddenly, a large shadow appeared beneath the surface. It moved swiftly, circling the boat. At first, it was unclear what it was, but the size of the figure was alarming. Jack leaned over, trying to get a better look. Before he could react, the water erupted with force. A massive 17-foot great white shark burst out of the ocean, its powerful body rising above the surface. The impact sent waves crashing against the boat, knocking Jack off balance. In an instant, he lost his footing and fell into the water. The splash was loud, breaking the silence as the sea swallowed him. His crew rushed to the edge, shouting in alarm. The shark was already closing in. As Jack struggled to stay afloat, the predator struck. The shark latched onto his foot, its sharp teeth cutting deep into his flesh. The water turned red as he thrashed, trying to break free. The crew threw a rope toward him, hoping to pull him back. The boat rocked as the men scrambled to help. Jack reached for the rope with all his strength, but the shark was relentless. For a brief moment, he managed to fight back, kicking hard and pulling himself toward the surface. The crew gripped the rope tightly, determined to bring him back. Jack's fingers clung to the side of the boat and the men pulled with all their strength. It seemed like he might escape, but then the shark returned. It struck again with terrifying speed, dragging him under once more. The struggle between man and beast was violent, and the ocean churned as Jack fought to survive. The crew did everything possible, but the sea had already taken hold of him. The battle was not over, but the waters of Cape Cod had become a place of fear. Jack's crew held the rope with all their strength, refusing to let go. The water thrashed around them as the shark pulled Jack deeper. His arms stretched toward the boat, his body weak from the struggle. The men fought against the weight of the ocean, but the force was too strong. Jack slipped from their grasp as the predator attacked again. The shark tore into his leg, shaking violently before pulling him further below the surface. The sea turned darker as the struggle continued. The crew shouted for help, but they were miles from shore, and no other boats were nearby. The only sounds were the crashing waves and the splashing water as Jack fought against the powerful creature. For a brief moment, the ocean went still. The men scanned the water, hoping to see movement. Then Jack's body reappeared, floating close to the surface. His crew quickly pulled him aboard, laying him on the deck. His injuries were severe, and blood pooled around him as he gasped for breath. The men worked frantically, wrapping cloth around his wounds, but the bleeding was unstoppable. The boat turned toward shore, speeding through the waves in a desperate attempt to get him to safety. The journey back felt endless. The crew did everything they could, but Jack's condition worsened. His breathing slowed, and his body grew weaker with every passing second. The men called for help over the radio, alerting the harbor of the emergency. They pushed the boat to its limits, hoping to reach land before it was too late. As they neared the coastline, paramedics waited at the dock, ready to take over. The crew carried Jack onto the pier, where medics rushed to save him. They worked quickly to stop the blood loss, but the damage was too great. Jack did not survive despite their efforts, and the fishing community lost one of its own that day. The news of the attack spread quickly. Cape Cod, known for its deep waters and rich marine life, had seen shark sightings before, but an incident this severe shook the entire town. Fishermen who had spent years on the water now looked at the ocean with fear. The once peaceful waves carried memories of what had happened. Authorities issued warnings, advising boaters to stay cautious. Experts studied the attack, trying to understand what had drawn the predator so close to a fishing vessel. Some believed the shark had mistaken the movement for prey, while others thought it had been a rare case of aggression. Jack's family and friends mourned his loss, remembering him as a man who loved the sea. His boat remained at the harbor, a reminder of the risks that came with life on the water. The ocean continued its endless movement, but it would never feel the same again for those who had witnessed that day. The waters of Cape Cod now held a story of tragedy, a reminder of the power and danger that lurked beneath the surface. On July 18, 2023, Emily Grant, a 26-year-old tourist from California, was on a long-awaited vacation with her family in Maui, Hawaii. The sun shone brightly over the crystal-clear waters as the family set out on a snorkeling trip near a well-known coral reef. Emily, an adventurous spirit, had always been fascinated by marine life. She had spent weeks researching the best spots to explore underwater and was thrilled to experience the beauty of the Hawaiian Ocean finally. The group included Emily's parents, her younger brother, and a few cousins. They looked forward to this day, eager to witness the colorful fish and coral formations beneath the waves. Their boat anchored near a quiet spot, and the group eagerly slipped into the water. They floated over the reef as small fish darted around them. The gentle waves made the experience peaceful, and for a while, everything felt perfect. Drawn by the beauty of the underwater world, Emily slowly drifted away from the others. She was mesmerized by the sea turtles gliding past and the schools of fish weaving through the coral. The sunlight reflected off the water, creating a dazzling effect. She felt a sense of calm, unaware that danger lurked beneath. As she moved farther, the ocean floor darkened slightly, signaling deeper waters. The rest of her family remained close to the boat, chatting and admiring the scenery. They occasionally called out to Emily to make sure she was still nearby. She responded each time, waving before diving back under to continue her exploration. Without warning, a large shadow emerged from the depths. A 12-foot tiger shark, a powerful predator, had been circling unnoticed. The snorkeler's movement and splashing had likely drawn its attention. Its sleek body moved precisely, and its eyes locked on Emily as she floated just above. The moment was sudden and brutal. The shark lunged forward, grabbing Emily by the torso with its massive jaws. The force of the attack sent ripples through the water as the predator dragged her down. Her body twisted in the struggle, bubbles rising to the surface as she attempted to break free. The water, once calm and clear, turned chaotic. Her family realized something was wrong and turned toward the disturbance. Panic set in as they saw a dark shape thrashing in the distance. They screamed for help, their voices filled with terror. The boat crew rushed to react, but they could do little. The vast and unpredictable ocean had already taken control. The shark held its grip, pulling Emily deeper away from any chance of rescue. She disappeared beneath the waves within moments, leaving nothing but disturbed water behind. The silence that followed was overwhelming. Frozen was in shock, and the family could not process what had happened. The boat crew alerted authorities, and a frantic search began. Divers scoured the area, but the ocean had already claimed its victim. The beauty of the Hawaiian waters had turned into a scene of horror, leaving those who witnessed the attack forever changed. After the violent struggle, the water settled, leaving only ripples where Emily had vanished. Her family remained frozen, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The once peaceful ocean now felt vast and empty. The boat crew immediately contacted emergency responders, urging them to send help. A sense of urgency filled the air, but everyone feared the worst deep inside. Minutes felt like hours as authorities arrived to begin the search. Helicopters hovered above the water, scanning for any sign of Emily. Boats spread across the area, and divers moved through the depths, hoping for a miracle. Despite their best efforts, there was no trace of her. The powerful and unpredictable ocean had taken her beyond reach. News of the attack spread quickly. Local officials warned other snorkelers and swimmers to stay out of the water. Marine experts were called in to analyze the situation, but there was no clear explanation for why the shark had attacked. Some believed it had mistaken Emily for prey, while others pointed out that tiger sharks are naturally aggressive hunters. The mystery only deepened the fear that now surrounded the waters of Maui. Back on shore, Emily's family struggled to process their loss. Just hours earlier, they had been laughing and enjoying their time together. Now everything felt unreal. The joy of their vacation had turned into heartbreak. They were surrounded by people offering support, but no words could ease their pain. The thought of leaving without Emily was unbearable. Authorities continued searching for days. Boats patrolled the area, and divers explored the depths, hoping to recover anything that might bring closure to the grieving family. Then, after a few days, their worst fears were confirmed. Emily's body was discovered, bearing the marks of the attack. The ocean had finally returned what it had taken, but the sight was devastating. The attack sent shockwaves through the local community. Tourists who had once eagerly entered the water now hesitated. Business owners who relied on snorkeling and diving tours faced cancellations. Fear spread quickly, and the once busy beaches grew quieter. Some locals defended the ocean, reminding others that sharks were a natural part of the ecosystem. Others, however, called for action, demanding safety measures to prevent another tragedy. Experts offered various solutions. Some suggested putting up more warning signs and increasing patrols in popular snorkeling areas. Others recommended studying shark behavior to understand what might trigger an attack. Despite these discussions, one truth remained unchanged. The ocean could never be completely controlled. Emily's family eventually returned home, carrying the heavy burden of their loss. Their vacation had become a nightmare they would never forget. They wanted to remember Emily for her adventurous spirit, but the way she was taken from them left a wound that would never fully heal. The waters of Maui, once a place of beauty and joy, would forever remind them of the day they lost her. On October 4, 2024, 25-year-old professional surfer Jake Collins competed in a highly anticipated surf competition off the coast of Huntington Beach, California. Jake was a seasoned surfer known for his impressive skills on the waves. He had been surfing for most of his life, having grown up on the beaches of Southern California. His passion for the sport led him to compete in various competitions nationwide, earning him respect from his fellow surfers. With its vast stretch of coastline and perfect waves, Huntington Beach was a place Jake loved. He felt most alive here, riding the waves that had become his world. The competition was in full swing that day, with many talented surfers showing off their best tricks. The excitement was high as surfers paddled out to catch waves, and the atmosphere was charged with adrenaline. But something unpredictable was about to happen. As Jake paddled out to see his next wave, the water around him began to feel different. There was a shift in the usual rhythm of the ocean, and an eerie stillness surrounded him. Jake, focused on the waves ahead, didn't notice the massive shadow moving beneath him. The massive white shark surged upward from the ocean's depths without warning. The powerful predator, likely attracted by the commotion caused by the competition, struck quickly and fiercely. It instantly clamped down on Jake's leg as he prepared to ride the wave. The sheer force of the shark's bite caused a searing pain that overwhelmed him. The shark's massive jaws locked onto his leg, and with terrifying speed it began to drag Jake underwater. The other surfers, realizing what had just happened, rushed to help. They paddled towards Jake as fast as they could, shouting for assistance. But the shark was relentless. It thrashed violently, pulling Jake beneath the surface and refusing to let go. The surfers could only watch in horror as the attack unfolded in front of them. Once a place of thrill and joy, the ocean had turned into chaos. Despite their desperate attempts to save him, Jake was already unconscious from the shock and pain. The shark's attack had been so fast and brutal that there was little anyone could do. After what seemed like an eternity, the surfers managed to pull Jake back to the surface. His body was limp, and it was clear he had been severely injured. Blood stained the water around him as they struggled to get him back to the safety of the shore. The boat crew quickly reached the group of surfers, and they worked together to get Jake out of the water, but it was already too late. The damage from the shark's attack had been severe, and Jake was losing too much blood. As they rushed to get him to shore, Jake's condition worsened. Despite the efforts of the medical team, Jake died from blood loss before they could reach the shore. The attack on Jake Collins left the surfing community in shock and mourning. It was a tragic event that shook everyone who had known Jake and admired his talent. Huntington Beach, a place known for its perfect waves, would forever be marked by this unimaginable tragedy. Jake's death was not just the loss of a surfer, but of a young man with a bright future ahead of him, whose passion for the ocean had brought him so much joy. The death of Jake Collins sent shockwaves through the surfing community, leaving many in disbelief. He was a well-known and respected surfer, and a young man full of promise, admired by his peers for his talent and love of the sport. His sudden and tragic death brought attention to the dangers lurking beneath the waves. No matter how familiar or skilled a surfer may be, Huntington Beach, where the competition occurred, has always been popular with surfers worldwide. It is known for its excellent waves, sunny weather, and vibrant surf culture. However, that day's tragedy changed how many people viewed the sport and the ocean. The community, once filled with the excitement of competition, was now mourning the loss of one of its own. Jake's family and friends were devastated by the news. They had seen him grow up with a passion for surfing, and it had shaped his life in ways that few people could understand. He had spent countless hours in the ocean, perfecting his craft and dreaming of a future as a professional surfer. His death was not just a loss for those who knew him personally, but for the entire surfing world, which had lost a bright star. In the days following the attack, surfers worldwide paid tribute to Jake in various ways. Memorials were held in his honor, and surfers wore black ribbons to remember him. Some held moments of silence before competitions to reflect on the tragedy. It was a time of mourning and celebration of Jake's life and contributions to the sport he loved. The shark attack on Jake sparked conversations about shark conservation and safety in the ocean. While shark attacks are rare, they can have devastating effects when they do occur. The shark that attacked Jake was identified as a great white, a species known for its size and power. These sharks are often misunderstood, and many people fear them due to their reputation. However, experts in marine biology emphasize that sharks are an important part of the ocean ecosystem and that attacks on humans are incredibly rare. The competition organizers and local authorities increased safety measures for future events after the attack. They work closely with marine biologists to better understand the behavior of sharks in the area and how to prevent future attacks. Surfers were also encouraged to be more aware of their surroundings and to take precautions when competing in the ocean. Jake's family honored his memory by building a foundation to support young surfers and raise awareness about ocean safety. The foundation's mission was to help aspiring surfers follow in Jake's footsteps while ensuring they were educated on the importance of safety and respect for the ocean. Jake's legacy would live on through the foundation, allowing his love for surfing to inspire future surfers. The loss of Jake Collins was a tragedy that left a lasting impact on the surfing world. It reminded everyone that despite the beauty and thrill of the ocean, it is also a powerful force that must be respected. Jake's life and death brought people together, and his memory will continue to inspire those who love the sport and the sea.